This video brought to you by our Patreons. Please consider supporting this channel and joining our Patreons at patreon.com/NovaWing24.
Hi there folks, my name's NovaWing24 and welcome to another review for a Microsoft Flight Simulator add-on. And today we are having a look at what is possibly one of my favorite programs from the legacy sims, and one that I was really excited about to hear coming to the new sim, and it's definitely coming to a space that's a little bit more crowded than it's ever been before. And of course, we are talking about Air Hauler 2. I've really been looking forward to bringing this one out here, so let's jump into it. But before we get started into this review, I do want to say a huge shout out to Just Flight. Thank you very much for supplying me with the review copy of this program today, of this logistics transportation management simulation. Let's jump into the review. Now, actually, what we're looking at here is the part where we've already set a company up, and this is going to be main screen. But we should probably start at the beginning. So let's go back to when you first launch Air Hauler 2 to go through the experience of, and let's have a look at the experience of actually starting your company and giving our review from the ground up. Alrighty, so when you first launch Air Hauler 2 and when you're loading it up for the first time, you get presented with this screen here. Now, this is very much based on the original Air Hauler 2. So Air Hauler 2 has been around for a few years now, and before that we had Air Hauler 1. So there is a lot of familiarity here if you are already used to this particular program. Now, it has a couple of buttons here. It has an option to import from Air Hauler 1. Now, unfortunately, there's no way to import from another Air Hauler 2 save. So, for example, if you had a Air Hauler 2 for X-Plane, or if you had Air Hauler 2 for Prepared, then unfortunately, you can't keep the same company data at the moment. It's a bit of a shame, but yeah, unfortunately that one is not possible at this time from what I've been informed. Bit of a shame. You can import if you did still have your old Air Hauler 1 company data, because it brings across the company information but not the actual sort of aircraft or stuff like that. It actually just brings across sort of, your company asset, your company value and stuff like that. Anyway, otherwise, we are going to create a new company, so we'll get ourselves started here. So we're going to pretty much click our new company button here. It'll think for a moment because this is all driven by a variety of database tables and things like that. Alright, so we go here. So obviously this version is only for Air Hauler 2. Again, this screen is a bit of a legacy from when you could choose whether you were doing FSX Prepared and which version of Prepared and stuff like that. So we're going to go to confirm, that's our path of our flight sim, all good. So we go next. Okay, so we put our company name in here. So we're doing Nova Express Logistics, because I'm totally keeping that name. So pilot handle. Okay, so we do NovaWing24, because I can do that one. There we go. So basically, call sign versus your name. So I'll just do that. There we go. Okay, now this one has changed a little bit, and this is kind of what this is actually what this setup has changed a bit from previous Air Hauler 2 expansions, and this is where my first look here is going to actually explore something that is a little different. So, obviously Air Hauler 2 is primarily set up as a cargo hauling company. However, it's been acknowledged by the dev that there are a lot of people who prefer just simply to fly passengers, or who don't want to have to fly or build up, and don't necessarily want to have a build up from a ground up where you start off with a very lowly basic aircraft. So we always used to start with Cessna 172. So you can still choose to do that with very basic, move your career up, or you can start flying the bigger aircraft straight away. So that option is now available to us. So you have this option for Easy or Easy Packs. So Easy Packs option, as says here, gives you 2 million in the bank, gives you 60% reputation, and a passenger configured Airbus A320, and you select a base a little bit later on as well. So that's ready to get go. So if you're in here to fly, to build up your own sort of virtual airline, as it were, or you actually want to get started and primarily want to look at the bigger aircraft to fly, like the Airbus A320, then this is going to be, pretty much the way that you want to go. It also, or otherwise, if you don't want to use the Airbus A320 that ships with the sim, then what you can do is you can sell in exchange for a bunch of cash, and then you can buy an add-on aircraft that you want to that you've already got included, or buy the 787, whichever one you want to do. Otherwise, if you go through here for these are the more traditional setups here. So easy, medium, hard, and career mode. These are the traditional. They haven't really changed a lot. Aircraft available to you has changed a little bit, but otherwise the amount of the starting money, the starting reputation hasn't really changed as much. So in this case for Microsoft Flight Simulator, we've got the option of easy is 60% rep, Cessna Citation CJ4, $1 million in the bank, and all configured for. Oh, by the way, all these are configured for cargo. By the way. Then we have medium, which is half a mil, 50% reputation, Cessna Caravan. So it's a good, solid workhorse, and one that in my previous companies, that was sort of the goal to get to a Caravan, and that could actually say you to get a good set of AI routes running as well. Hard obviously it gets significantly harder as we go on here, where you get 200 to a quarter of a million, you got 40% reputation to Cessna 172, and career. Both of these are very similar to their legacy counterparts, where they take the smallest, most basic default aircraft and give it to you. Obviously, the G1000 is the one that's common across all the versions of Microsoft Flight Simulator, so that's the one here rather than analog gauges. So that's a bit of a shift change from the old FSX days. Now, this, however, is the new one here. Like this is the new one, and this is a really interesting one. This one, so this one is the Nomad mode, and this is the one that we're going to have a look at today. So Nomad mode is absolute bare bones. Like you are literally a pilot for hire. So this is where it takes on a different slant for Air Hauler 2, and I'm not sure if it's the right slant for Air Hauler 2, but it's the new slant that they're taking with this one. So this one, instead of creating a company, you're actually just a solo pilot for hire. So you start at an airport, and well, I guess we'll find out. But reading the description of it is that you start with an airport and you simply go airport to airport and pick up a job as you go. So there's no company management, there's no things like that, there's no AI employee management. There's no sort of route planning and stuff like that. And you don't have to worry about bases and base maintenance or anything like that. However, if you want to change to that, you can change from Nomad mode onto the career mode, and it just rolls you over. But you can't go back. So it's a one-way trip. So if you start with Nomad mode, then you will be sort of starting with that one. So I did say we are going to have a look at that, but we'll have a look at that in the second part of this first look at this review of Air Hauler 2. We're going to start with a standard career scenario first. We're going to start there. We're going to show you how to set up your company. Then we're going to come back and we're going to have a look at the Nomad mode for the first one. So let's have a look first off at our hard career mode. So as I said, pick that one here. So we're going to go hard. You know what? Let's go career. Let's show you what it's really like. As I said, and obviously it gets easier if you go this way. So we're going to go career mode. So we're starting with a Cessna 172 G1000. This is very reminiscent for me. When I started my first company, Air Hauler 1, I started in career mode with a Cessna 172 and all this. So this is very nostalgic for me at the moment. All right. So if we go next into here, and then we choose the base airport that you want to start from. So basically, you've got a global map here. You go through and find everything out, or you just go choose airport. This allows you to search for the ICAO. So what we're going to do is we're going to search for my local airport here. So we're going to go to Yankee Whiskey Lima Mike. So we're going to start here at Newcastle. So you always get your first. So when you're starting your company, you get your first base for free. That's sort of included with this one. With maybe not so much free, but yeah, this is your first base. So it gets yourself started up. This is your starting base location, and it gives you an idea of some airports that are around and where you can actually use this as well. Airports that you're going to visit in sort of your area. Brief summary of the airport information about it. So there are landing fees, which you do get models, so you do actually have to pay when you're actually landing and stuff like that. So this is all part of managing a company, which is kind of cool. All right, so basically the basic information there. As I said, all this is very, very similar to our previous air hauler, and so is this. So this gives you an idea of how often and how many jobs are creative. So do you want to have lots of jobs to choose from? Do you want to have just a couple of jobs and just pick, just have a limited selection there? Personally, I always like to see more jobs, so I sort of put this fairly high. Distance. How far do you want to travel? How far do you want to have to go between between the airport that you're at and the airport that you're flying to? Again, depends on how you want to play it. If you want to sort of play and fly to more familiar ones, then that's fine. You probably want to keep this fairly short. If you want to do a bit of an exploration tour and go to airports that you've never had a reason to go to before, which is kind of how I see programs like Air Hauler 2 really being important to the flight simulation community, then I kind of suggest it goes, put this a bit further. But at the same time, if you're looking at something, if you've only got maybe an hour or two to fly, you don't want to have to set up for a 5-hour flight. So mix this one. For this one, I'm going to set this a little bit low so we can sort of show off some of those jobs that will come up here. All right, size job. How big is the job? How much stuff do you have to carry? So in terms of passengers, as I said, this is all about cargo jobs. So how much stuff? Now, just bear in mind is that if there's a lot of stuff, you may not be able to fit into your aircraft in one trip. You may have to come back and go backwards and forwards multiple times to get to finish the trip. So just bear that in mind if you do put larger jobs here. So I tend to, again, while I'm starting, you can change these all later on as well. You can modify all these later on once you've launched your company. But to get yourself started, probably keep those jobs a little bit low. Internal jobs is one if once you start opening more bases, so more buying offices at more airfields, will you basically will this slide allow you to preference jobs that go simply between bases you already own, or do you want to go to places that you don't want to go? So I keep this one fairly minimal, so we can go to new places. So again, I can explore and go to new places. And finally, here airport size. How big does is when it's creating a job sizes? Does the airport? If the airport is really small, is it going to have a job, or will jobs only appear at larger airports? Because I like bush flying and I've got a smaller aircraft, I generally stick with this one to be pretty small for this one. So I keep that one there. All right, so that's setting up your company there, and that's it. And then we are ready to go. But what is interesting this one, and one of the things that I kind of like about how Air Hauler as a program has always worked, is that you actually have to have a type rating for your aircraft before you can fly it. So we are going to have to do our type rating before we start flying our first cargo job. So let's choose finish. And it will now set up and build our company, create the database that it needs to create the job, to create the company, and it'll then start creating jobs for us and prepare our office. All right, so, and here we go straight up. So the new interface is it's apparently something was very successful there. There you go. When you achieve, so there are actual in-game achievements for this as well, by the way, which we'll totally there. So we'll actually say not type rated at the moment, but we won't take the type rating. We'll take our type rating test a little bit later. Let's go through the company here first. All right, so for those who've been in Air Hauler 2 previously, the concept hasn't changed, except the difference is that we now have a layout that looks very much based on the UI of Microsoft Flight Simulator. So nice big, UX panel design, which is kind of cool, kind of awesome. By the way, you can customize your office, this landing page. You can customize that as much as you want, which is really, really awesome, by the way, just so you know. Anyway, okay, so this gives you, so we'll go through a couple of options here. So very, very simple stuff at the moment. Let's go in here and load these offices. These will be very basic at the moment. So you click on the image to be able to open it up. And this will give you a list of any AI pilots that you have that work for your company. So you'll be able to bring all these in, put all these pilots in here, and you can see what they're doing, where they're going, what jobs they might be assigned to, and stuff like that. Fleet, again, same kind of deal, is that you have a fleet of aircraft. So as you get more aircraft that either you use or that your AI pilots use, they will appear here. They'll also appear as the pilot or co-pilot that might be assigned to it. Be aware that larger aircraft, like the Airbus A320, will require you to have both a pilot and a co-pilot on board. You can fly it yourself without a co-pilot. However, if your AI is flying it, the AI must have pilot and co-pilot status. It'll also give you information about the condition of the aircraft, so you can repair it or not. And you can just simply do some quick information about this as well. So you can tell that you need a position to another airfield, or you can just fly the aircraft for the sake of flying it. Transit VA, we'll talk about that in a bit longer, a little bit later. Change configuration, so you can change it from a cargo configuration to a passenger configuration, and vice versa. Or change the number of seatings once you've got a passenger aircraft there. You can insure the aircraft, so if you damage it, break it, or do something with it, you'll reduce the cost of your repairs, but bear in mind that can get a little expensive to do, so just be aware of that one. It has your checks, so you do actually have to do checks on the aircraft. So when it gets to a certain number of hours, you will have to perform an A check, B check, C check. And that does take time. It means that the aircraft will be unserviceable for a period of time while those checks are taking place. So there's a lot that goes on in this sim that makes it like running your own company, which is the kind of the attraction of it. Is it, as I said, the attraction of this is flying to new places, but also the company simulation as well. So it really does expand and enhance your simulation experience. All right, so other than fleet, we have company bases. Again, it kind of says what it says on the tin. So as you open up more bases for your company, you can add more. More will appear here. Bear in mind that there is a monthly rental, and you have to pay that. So you don't own the airfield; you're leasing, part of the FBO, for your operations. So you do have to pay for that. You also can go through and have different stocks. You can have stock and fuel, so various commodities and fuel stored on the at your location, at your office, and you have various different types of fuel that go through as well. So there's a lot. As I said, so this is a one-stop shop for all your management of all your base activities. All right, beyond that, you have your passenger ops. So if you are running passengers, you'll be able to look up there, but we don't have any aircraft configured passenger flights, so nothing's going to go there. Cargo jobs. So this is probably the meat and potatoes of this simulation, is the fact that you look at all the cargo jobs that you can go fly. So as I said, this is a database. The database refreshes as these expire. It will refresh them automatically and go through, but it refreshes sort of a certain percentage have to expire before it'll randomly start creating new ones. Now, in terms of that, what you can do is that you can tick, for example, so we've got Williamtown here. Few different fields you can sort by. For example, I always make sure that I sort by expiring, and then you can see traffic, whether it's coming in or out from Williamtown. So as I said, we've got this one, so we can sort this out too. So we can say that we can only do from Williamtown, and then we can see where we're going to. So we could go from Williamtown. So that job there, that one there is going down to YNSW, so down to Nowra. It gives you estimated the distance, shows you how much what type of cargo you're taking, and the quantity of the cargo, and how much money you're going to earn. Bear in mind that this earning does not take allowance for fuel costs, landing costs, anything like that, which is all part of this business management that you have as part of this simulation. Now, one thing I do want to start off here, it actually hasn't really shown here. Actually, let me just remove that filter and see if it does come across. But I think the frozen turkey is the only one there. So you will find that one of the things I really love about this sim is that the Air Hauler 2, the database, oh, yeah, there it is, tinsel. So it has certain commodities that only appear during certain times of the year. So there'll be certain ones at a times that appear during, for example, a near 4th of July and near Guy Fawkes night. You'll see fireworks start appearing. Same with New Year's. You'll see tinsel, Christmas presents, Christmas trees starting to appear around Christmas time. And there's a couple of other events during the year where you'll sort of see things popping in and out, which is you see a lot of beer orders coming in around September, October. So there's a lot of cool little things that go in under the hood, which I really like, little cool things that you won't necessarily, you might take a while to pick up, but they're really cool when you do realize that are there. I think they're kind of awesome. As I said, this is where you take the job. You can choose to accept the job and fly it yourself, or you can assign it to an AI for when you recruit an AI pilot to do it. So that's pretty. This is, like I said, this is the meat and potatoes where it is. Like this really is everything there. No right-click interface, which is to sort of be able to sort of accept or assign job and stuff like that. I think that's That's something that I've noted and would have been nice to see in previous ones as well. I get this to do with the way it's the tables and stuff like that, but at the same time, as there you go. Now, down here on the tab here, when you do have, so you've got the overview map here, when you've got an airport selector, you get these tabs down the side here, which allow you to see things like stocks, so various different stocks that are available at that airport that you can purchase. Stocks are things that you, for example, you might need those for missions, you might need those for random scenarios that pop up, or you might need them for manufacturing things, which is you can do factories construction as well. It's a very advanced thing. Don't I'll be honest, I've tried to do it, and I just never could really get the workflow to do it. I much prefer just to fly. I'm more about the flying rather than the company management. This is probably letting the side down a bit, but it is there, and we'll get into that, showing that in a little bit. All right, the missions tab is one here that you see here as well, and this is where we see, for example, we talk about the commodity stocks. So, for example, here, this particular mission is to supply emergency medical supplies to Reese Nichols here in Williamtown. So, up to a maximum, we'll pay $136.20 per pound, up to a maximum of £234. Now, basically what you do is that you can go find, if you can find that commodity at another airport, you buy it, and then you come bring it back, and then you deliver it to, and then you've got a button here that says supply goods. So as long as it's either on your aircraft or stored in your base storage, you'll be able to supply it to Reese Nichols and get mission credit that way, which is again part of your reputation. Missions are random. Missions can be everything from courier. So you have to you pick up some cargo, ferry it to somewhere else, specific cargo. You could have to supply, like this mission is here, or you might need to do something like a timed mission where you have to pick up cargo and deliver it within a certain amount of time. Or passengers, same thing as well. You might have a passenger run or an urgent charter that you have to do. Or a sightseeing charter. So there's various different missions that come through, all automatically generated, and all kind of interesting. They're sometimes quite difficult to do, particularly if you don't have a lot of bases, particularly if you're doing the stock ones, because it's hard to figure out what is available at what place. Can be a challenge there. Aircraft and stock. So you can see what aircraft, what pilots, and what stock are at the airport that you've got selected here. Pretty basic. And parts shop. So if you we need to buy parts to build, so you can actually build your own aircraft by buying parts, which is kind of cool. All right, so that's the office, sort of all the headers of the office here. We'll go across to some of the other information here as well. So available jobs, accepted jobs, kind of do what they say on the tin. Overview map kind of combines those. Routes and ad hoc flights. So this is if you have passenger configured aircraft and have AI passengers or want to fly passenger routes yourself. So you can establish routes, and actually, again, we can't show those off because we don't have any packed configured aircraft. But you can establish routes. Say you want to have a twice daily service from Sydney to Melbourne and back. You can charter those. It also allows you to. You have to set the time. You have to set the turnaround times, the pilots. Make sure the pilots have sufficient time for crew rest as well. So there's a lot of calculations going there. There were a couple of bugs in the old version. I don't know if they're still around. You had to be very careful if stuff was happening over midnight UTC. You had to be careful of. So just be aware of that. I don't know if it's still in this build, but it was always a known issue of the old versions of Air Hauler 2. Again, missions, humanitarian missions is one that was released as part of Air Hauler 2. Air Hauler's humanitarian missions, they're actually based on live actual data. So, for example, when COVID was kicking off, there was a variety of missions that were involved about bringing emergency medical supplies to Wuhan, to New York, to London. So they are fed by the dev, and earthquakes strike certain places. You'll see them pop up for supplying medical shelters or emergency shelters, stuff like that. I probably expect to see one for Fiji because the cyclone has just gone through Fiji very shortly. I think it's kind of cool. It's something different, and it allows you to go somewhere that's topical, which is kind of awesome. Radar is kind of interesting, kind of cool. So this actually links into all other people who are flying, who are using Air Hauler 2, and allows it to be tracked. So you can actually see, who's flying. So we can see that Jolly Roger at the moment is flying a Cessna 208 Caravan with household supplies on board, and we've got Dean flying a Cessna Skyhawk G1000 over there with onboard with furniture on board. So this is kind of cool, kind of interesting. This 737-800 here, that I'm wondering if it means that it talks with, if it shares the same radar as the ESP version, um, or they've done something very dodgy and they've jammed the old FSX 737 in there. I'm going to guess, looking at all the fact that there's not thousands of people flying, that I'm guessing that somebody's done a dodgy and jammed a 737 in there. So we won't talk about that person. But yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Okay, so that's the Air Hauler 2 forums. Does what it says on the tin, allows you to go to the forums. All right, company information. Again, a lot of stuff we've gone through here. Probably the highlight ones that we need to show off is the info, finance, and the info in the finance tabs. So this is your reputation. Your reputation is important because better jobs, more higher paying jobs, will evolve based on your reputation. And you have your reputation is divided into cargo, passenger, and mission. You also have a reputation log of anything that's affected your reputation positively or negatively. You can add in a company logo, a company identifier for any passenger flights that you do. Finance is what it says on the tin. It allows you to keep track of what your finances, what your incoming, outcoming, and your expenditures are for things like base costs, aircraft leasing, insurance, all the rest of it. Office is a office key bit back there. Personal info. So what's interesting is that you still are a individual in this one as well, where you can actually, you rank up, you have your names, details. You can change details through here as well. You can have your own personal fleet of aircraft as well, which is kind of cool. Information about your flights, airports visited, and stuff like that. And here are the achievements I was talking about as well. So it goes through starting a new company, things like hiring pilots, financially having lots of pilots and stuff. Kind of cool. Achievements are the same as that we've had previously. Nothing new. Awesome. Factories and construction. I'll be honest, I don't know a great deal about this. This is always a challenge for me. I tried to make it work. Theoretically, you can build factories at any base that you have, and then that allows you to build items. You have to buy some raw materials, some commodities, and you can go through and then use them to make other things. Eventually, you can go all the way through to actually build aircraft. So if you don't want to buy aircraft off the in-game marketplace, you can actually sort of build your own. So, as I said, I honestly never wrapped my head around it. If anybody has, I'd love to hear from you and have a chat to you about it because it's always confused the hell out of me. Finally, we have Marketplace, which is pretty much what it says on the tin. This allows you to buy aircraft and hire crew. Now, if you use the aircraft or crew, these are new. So aircraft is a brand new aircraft that gets delivered to one of your bases. Crew is what it says. You hire an AI pilot to do jobs for you. Private sales is interesting, and this was a feature that is kind of cool. Is it allows you to pick up a aircraft. You'll pick up. It'll be cheaper than buying it from as a new aircraft from that tab. However, it is usually not fully repaired or not fully functional. It will have some damage to it, and it might be on the other side of the world. So you may have to go a long way to be able to get there. So that's just something to be aware of if you do start using it. Otherwise, loans and banking. So loans and banking, you have to have, obviously, that pop that says company reputation of at least 40%. Allows you to essentially get some capital, like capital loan, to be able to keep your business. So if you want to buy that extra aircraft, you don't quite have enough money yet, you can take a loan out and get the aircraft and then pay the loan back. Management, this one is more about managing your data. So this is where, for example, if you have aircraft in there that are non-standard, you can import them in. You can also get airport management, custom airports. So if you have a airport that you want your AIs to go to or something like that, or that you specifically want to call out, it's not in the standard database. You can add that in there. A lot of that though is a holdover from legacy sims. And finally, this is just the theme of the actual developer there. I probably will just show you the aircraft management screen. So this shows you all the aircraft that are currently available. You can add in additional aircraft. So if you have got third-party aircraft that you've got in there, you can import them in here just using import. You may need to know some of this information. So Google is your friend when setting it up. Otherwise, it's said pretty much follow the bouncing ball. All right, so that is the summary, so the top and tail of this. What is it? So this is how it is. So let's go through and finish this first part of this first look by doing our type rating, showing how that works, and then showing off a actual mission. So first off, we need to do our type rating. So the first thing we need to do is we need to go back to our company information, we go to our personal, and then we need to go add new type rating. So we're doing the Cessna 172. So we're going to go, basically it's, yep, okay, so choose the aircraft type. So this will give you a list of all the aircraft that are available to you for in your company, for example, or in your private fleet. And you go choose the one that you want to do, Cessna 172. It's going to cost us $329 out of our, around 5 cents out of our bank allowance, on-hand cash. And then we go, okay, pay and take flight test now. So let's do that. So once we've clicked that, this gives you up a little window here. This will become more familiar as you do cargo jobs or passenger jobs, so you can see what it is. So it gives you, so this will, for example, give you cargo that you load, bring it on board, show you where to go. So currently, we have what have we got here? How much fuel have we got on board? So it looks like at the moment we already have a full load of fuel on board. Okay, so we've already got fuel. So if we didn't have fuel on board, we have a smooth that slider here, and we had to buy fuel. We can also offload fuel or load additional fuel onto the aircraft in space of cargo and unload it once we get to our destination. Otherwise, that's ready to go, so let's press OK. All right, now one thing that is not is manual at the moment. It doesn't automatically launch. So previously in other sims, it would automatically launch the sim for you once it got to this screen. At this point, you can't actually do that. You have to manually launch the sim, and once the sim's launched, then you can actually sort of press OK here, and it'll come through here. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to launch our sim, and we'll come back once the sim's launched. Alright, so we are in the sim, and there is an incessant beeping until we get the end of that, so we get into the sim, and we get our little flight started. So what we have to do is we have to manually do this. As I said, there's no way to automatically send this data across at the moment. Hopefully we should see that come in the future, but for now we do have to do it manually. So we've selected our Cessna 172, we've got it here at Williamtown. We're going to set our weight and balance because we do remember that we had a full load of fuel. So we're going to set that to a full load of fuel. And we've got myself and we've got our instructor in there to do our type rating. Alright, so that's pretty much what we're going to do. So we're going to hit fly on that one to get ourselves started. And that's then going to load in. I like there is a little note here though, if you are doing the passenger services though, make sure you start at your gate rather than the active runway. So if you're doing it, otherwise you can choose to start on the runway if you so desire. But we're going to click ready to fly. Okay, so loaded in here. So that is definitely not the weather that I'm seeing outside at the moment, so that's interesting. But anyway, alright, so let's have a look at, so what we're going to do is we're going to select OK on this one. So what this now has is your tracking flight, your sort of flight tracking information. This is something that sort of sits here the whole time when you're while you're flying. So this will track your position. It'll also give you some in-flight messenger information as well. So it actually go through what happens, so anything that happens in flight. So if you forget it or miss an instruction, you can do it there. It also goes to different monitoring options as well. This one's interesting, probably geared for more longer haul fights. You auto pause the sim when you're sort of getting towards the end of your journey. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump into the sim and we're going to do our type rating today. So this should be interesting. So our first tip is that we're all connected. The big thing to check for is that we have the green light going on there. So we'll hide that one out of the way. Well, actually, we'll move that one out to the side here so you guys can still see it, but it's not necessarily in the way because there's going to be some important stuff that we're going to be seeing on the screen very, very shortly. And while very strong pushback there, we'll finish our pre-flight checks. Avionics buses are on, strobes, navs are on, taxi lights are on. Alright, ready to go. Now what'll happen is you'll have these little tip windows pop up, which will be instructions you'll receive from Air Hauler 2, and as I said, they will appear in the in-flight message log. If you're not sure about them, or if you do miss them, they will appear there for you to review. So our first one is that we have to taxi and take off. All right, so we've done our taxi, so let's do our takeoff. Okay, looking good. Pump is off. Feeder heat switch is on. That's good. Throttle up and depart. Now, when you're doing your type rating, it'll give you a series of instructions to follow. The biggest one is you can't, don't stall the aircraft, and don't have a very hard landing. They're pretty much the key things you have to remember when you're doing this type cert flight. Now, this flight you'll only have to do once for each aircraft type when you do it. So if you just use a different livery or something, that's fine. It's mainly you have to do it each time you get a new aircraft. So you'll need to do one for, say, Cessna 172. You need to do another one that'll cover you for the analog and the glass copy version. Then you'll have to do another one for like the A38, stuff like that. Okay, so we need to climb to 2,800 feet. Now, if you're cheeky, what you can also do is you can where my altitude is on this one. So what you can actually do is that you can go, let's do headings. Okay, you can actually cheat. I'm not going to say it's cheating, but you can sort of, make use of the tools available to you, and you can go. Remember where all my settings are for my autopilot here. So you can go heading holds, and you can go vertical speed. So the tip will actually, as I said, the tip will stay there. So I actually used to disappear, but there you go. The tip will stay there now until you reach the assigned altitude, or the task that you're required to complete. So we'll go through, we'll complete our task, we'll go up to 2,800 feet. When we do the turns later on, which we'll do shortly after this, is that it'll then do things like, when you do them, don't turn too hard or too steeply, because that will cause an issue. Now, you can hand fly this as well. It will take a tolerance of usually a couple hundred feet was the tolerance. Once you've got to maintain the altitude, you maintain it for a few seconds, and for it to register that you completed it and allow you to complete that task. It'll usually be a variety of altitude change requests and heading hold requests is what the generally will take part of. So we'll see what is the next one this has installed. Yes, okay. That means it's a lot more exacting now than it used to be. So it has to be at or above rather than just underneath. So there is the band has changed a lot. All right. So next we have to turn on to heading 179 and stay level. So let's do that now. So let's just turn on to 179. Yeah, of course, this one can be a bit challenging because this is an issue that I've seen with the AP and the Garmin here, is that sometimes the heading holes, so this is where cheating, like using the autopilot, can be a little frustrating because the AP doesn't necessarily respect single digits of change anymore. So this one, okay, is still fairly close, this one, okay. So this one we need to go to 094. Okay, and we want to go down to 2,700 feet. Okay, so we're going to go vertical speed. So the altitude restrictions have got a lot more tighter in terms of passing your type rating here, but the heading ones are still give you a bit of bit of leeway with the headings. Alright, so now we go on to 2,000 feet. And the final one after this one, once we've completed this one, should be heading into land. Okay, so that's fine. So what we'll do is we'll move our heading rug. Inside, little on the high side.
500.
Now what's interesting is that you get the double GPWS, is that the Air Hauler 2 does give you a GPWS, which you can turn off in the settings if you want to, but it does give you a GPWS there.
Minimums.
Little on the low. It's a bit weird hearing the GPWS call outs in the Cessna 172, not gonna lie to you.
40. 30. 20. 10.
Okay, so we've landed and it acknowledges the landing there. And once we've shut down, we'll get the results of our type rating. Okay, here we go. Parking brake is on. Okay. Strobes done. Throttle lean. There we go. And there we go. So we get the aircraft, so we get it all shutting down there, and we get this little pop-up screen here. This says, congratulations, we've passed our flight test. So it goes through, make sure all the checks and balances there, and congratulations, passed with no issues. Right, so we now can officially fly our aircraft that our company has bought for us. Alright, so let's jump back to Air Hauler 2 then. So we press OK here. So once we've done our test, we now click on the Finish Flight Monitoring and we get our results there. So it goes through the flight time, any bit of information that you need there, any kinds of overspeeds or anything like that. So good little breakdown for those who are into their numbers. Alright, so we go to, once we finish there, that's it. We now have our type rating, which is now recorded here. So now we've got a type rating, we can now do our first job for our company. Now, as I said, grabbing a job is very, very simple. Simply, as I said, you pick the airport that you want to do the job from. In this case, we're doing from Williamtown, so we're going to search by all the things that are leaving Williamtown. We're then going to sort them by when they expire. So, for example, if we wanted to do multiple jobs, we could. But let's just do a nice, short, quick flight here. And you can also, the great thing is you can also do a couple of different types of flights, or you can combine flights together. So if you wanted to do a chain of flights, for example, you could look for maybe some flights that go on to a couple of different airports that are near each other. You could do those. Or to combine multiple cargo jobs towards the one destination. Now, the thing to be mindful of, as I said before, is that you need to look at the quantity, because the quantity may be greater than what you already have, the cargo capacity that you have available in your aircraft. Now, if you're not sure what the cargo capacity of that aircraft is, you can actually check that in your fleet. So if we go back to your company information, we click on fleet here. So cargo capacity is 548 pounds is the maximum it can have on board at any one time, based on having a full fuel capacity. So if you have less than full fuel, then you can always carry more cargo. So it's a trade-off risk-reward kind of option here. But if we assume that we've just got the 500 to play with, and we can look at, for example, here, WBN, for example, we would have to do 2 jobs to do the glass job because it's more than 500 kilos, or sorry, more than 500 pounds. But if we do the job here, then we can just simply be 1. Same as if we're going to WLX, it'd be more than it'd be a couple of jobs. But as our first job, just to be able to showcase one, let's take some frozen fish from Newcastle down to Douglas Park. So it's a fairly short hop, straight over Sydney as well. So let's jump on board and let's do that. Go there for a fly now. Alright, so we've got our first cargo job. So we basically, to select it and activate the job, we highlight it here, and then we go accept job. So we can either go accept job, if we wanted to pool several jobs together, or if we just want to, if this is the only job we're flying, which in this case it is, we just simply click fly now, and we go accept job for fish and fly now, and we go yes. So it's pretty simple there. So we go, so it's a company aircraft, so we're going to be using the Cessna Skyhawk G1000 in the Sobo colors, with cargo configuration because it's the only aircraft in our fleets available. If there was multiple aircraft in the fleet that, for example, we weren't type rated on, they would be shown in red, as I said here. Sorry, it wouldn't actually be shown at all. Okay, so we go okay there. Alright, so we're looking at, we've got our frozen fish. Now, as I said, we recognize this, very similar from what we saw before. This time, though, we now go load. We load the cargo on board. So, that's it. Not that hard, pretty obvious, but this is what we do. Okay, we press OK. Now, again, this is a little bit different here. So we go last position here, so it remembers the last place we were. And it looks at the time now. The time and date is all in Zulu time. Just remember that as well, that it is in Zulu. So we're going to be doing that one. We'll do IFR. So let's actually just do VFR direct. We're going to cruise at 8,000 feet. So you can change all this as well. As I said, these are all direct. You can add route waypoints in using VOR and NDBs and waypoints if you want to. Otherwise, just simply default in straight in. So we're going to go accept route and fly. Now this is probably something to be aware of, is that in previous versions of Air Hauler 2, it would generate a flight plan file that you could then load into the sim. That is not the current case for this one from Microsoft Flight Simulator. So in that way, it is a little less featured than its older cousins. Because it previously, for example, if we did this, when I would do this in my company for Prepared, it would actually generate a PLM file that I would then load in if I wanted to, or I could generate a scenario file. It is all, otherwise this time it is all user selectable this time around. So we're going to jump in. I said it won't be too much different, so let's go jump in to set the aircraft up, and we'll rejoin this when we are back in the sim. Alright guys, so a couple of quick things to note here is, again, as much as we did before, except this time we have had to manually set our fuel and our weights. So you can see here that I've actually matched the fuel and the weight, the cargo weight, to what we have here. It does make us technically a couple of pounds overweight, but that's fine. I'm sure we are skilled enough pilots to be able to do it. So yeah, that's just something to be aware of. Again, that information isn't automatically fed into the sim like it has been in previous versions, but that's okay. It's something to do. That also, the beep that you get from that can be a little frustrating at times. All right, as I said, we've got it through there. It's coming through now. Everything is connected. And it goes, welcome to Air Hauler flight, startup and taxi. So, unlike what we saw with type rating flight, there won't be ongoing sort of information here. It'll just simply be, this is what it is, it's done, and off it goes. But let's start up our engines, get ourselves started, and we'll get into the air, and then we'll probably skip the flight to the end of the flight. So let's get first off. Alright, so we've got our course set. We're going to do a bit of preset here. We're going to set my altitude to 8,000. So it's all ready before I go. And I've punched my course into my GPS, so I've got my pink line ready, my magenta line ready to go. So with that, we're ready to go. Let's throttle up and take off. Airspeed is alive. Definitely a bit more sluggish when we've got all that cargo on board as well as the fuel. As I said, this is now the last message that you'll get until you stop on the ground. So it says that you're en route, so you fly the sector and land at your destination. Now, a couple of cool things is that if you, for example, misplanned stuff and you didn't have enough fuel, for example, you can stop at another airport, stop the flight, refuel, and just carry on. You can do that, but you still need to end the flight inside of Air Hauler. Otherwise, yeah, as said, you just sort of keep going and fly it. So what we'll do is we'll break the video here, and we'll pick it up again once we have arrived at our destination airport, and we can go through how to hand a job off. So coming here on in on short final, instead of coming on final here, coming in a bit fast. One of the things though to remember with Air Hauler is that the cargo doesn't like being handled too much, so you got to be very careful with your turns, especially with your approaches, for example, that you don't over correct or do too significant a bank angle, because that can damage your cargo if you're not careful. So, which is again some of the cool parts of sort of challenges of actually flying through here.
500.
Definitely coming in a little fast, I think, but that's alright. We should be able to bleed these off. Definitely should be on a lower VREF for here.
Minimums.
And apparently flying online, we managed to pick up a few friends.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Oh, that was a bit hard. Oh, okay. Apparently it was smooth, so it was within tolerances. We'll take that. I would have thought that was a bit hard, but anyway. Okay, so let's exit quickly off the runway here. Since we apparently attracted a few people to join us. But we can check the final results from our flight debriefing once we're done here. So let's taxi around here. A little too much brake when I turn that. Oof, that might buff out. Okay, we are in position to shut down. There we go. Okay, parking brake is on. Down, mixture is set to idle. Something down. There we go. And we've got a little notice there, so we can alt tab back to air hauler, so we can offload cargo and fuel, which is good. So we can do all that. So let's continue finishing shutting our aircraft down. Alright, so nav strobes are off, makes off, makes buses 1, 2 off, battery alternator is off. There we go. So we're all shut down here. So let's jump back to the main menu, which we're allowed to do, as we change programs back over into Air Hauler 2. So back in Air Hauler 2, we can see that we finished our flight. So we can finish go to cargo unloading. So this is something to do as well. You can do this either before or after your flight monitoring, but it is better to do it before you finish your flight monitoring. So you go unload cargo, and that will actually complete your job. And you hear the little yay when it's all successfully. Or if you're late, or if you've broken the cargo, you get booed. So just FYI, just be aware of that. Alright, then once we've done unload the cargo, we can actually go through here, finish our flight monitoring here. And we've got a smooth landing performance, that wasn't too bad. So, what was my landing VSI then? Oh, okay, so it was 100 feet, so okay, no, I'll take it. I thought it was a bit harder than that, but there you go. So yeah, there you go. So we've now set up our company. So this is pretty much the basics of the company. Now, what else is there beyond that? As I said, well, essentially, it's what you want to make of it. As I said, you can grow your company, you take more jobs. Now, one of the things that we can quickly see here is if we go over to company info panel, let's have a look here. So we can see that our reputation is starting to increase. So our cargo reputation is up to 21, and our overall reputation is sort of, as I said, it's a combination of all three of those elements, and they're slowly on the rise as well. So we continue growing on as you grow your reputation. The value of the jobs, the amount that you get paid for the jobs increases. The types of jobs will increase. The number of jobs available to you will increase as well. And also things like, get access to the financial content as well. So there's advantages as you grow your company. As I said, you can then go through into the marketplace. You can trade aircraft in, you can buy aircraft, you can ferry them, you can buy AI crew, which is, I think, kind of cool as well. Again, this is also based on your reputation. So if you have a high reputation, people are going to want to come and work for you. If you don't, then they won't. So they won't appear here. And these are good because these people, you bring your AI on, and then you can actually, that's the company simulation side of Air Hauler 2, where you can actually grow a growing empire, cargo empire, to actually have pilots doing charter flights for you all over the world. And you set them the same way as you do your cargo jobs, except just by choosing assign to AI, and that's what we need to do. All right. So, this is part one of two parts of my review of Air Hauler 2. But in a sense, though, it is still a self-contained review because I'm focusing this episode has been focused on the company aspect of Air Hauler 2 as it essentially as it is true to form, true to life system is. And what do I think of it? Look, it's great. Like I love Air Hauler. I love the Air Hauler franchise. I always have. If you're familiar with the franchise and you're familiar with it and you're into the flying cargo, the great part about this is that it is a one-time buy. You purchase it once, and there's no ongoing subscription costs. There's no ongoing sort of maintenance fees or anything like that. It is simply this is it. Like it is a full, complete company simulator, and I think I really want to stress that word there is a logistics company simulator. Because not only are you going to be managing, not only are you going to be flying, you're also going to be managing other bases, other aircraft, other air crews. So you will have to. So, for example, we'll go back to our company information here. We'll go back to our fleet. So we can see here now that we've got hours up on this airframe. So we will have to do the A checks, B checks, C checks eventually, and stuff like that. We'll have to repair the aircraft if we break it. If you land too hard, you break something, and those failures can be replicated into the sim. Though not at present, I believe, but it can actually eventually go. You will degrade your aircraft performance. So this is very much a company simulator. It gets you to be, for the company can be the size you want. And the great part of how the developers gone for this time around is they've added in more options for you to get started. If you prefer passenger flying or bigger aircraft flying, there are ways for you to get into those straight away without having to work your way up from a Cessna 172 up from there. So in terms of that, it hasn't really changed a lot. Like it is they've built on a tried and true recipe and have definitely sort of continued the pedigree on. It does have a few limitations at the moment. The fact that it does have to do a manual launch, and the fact that there is no flight plan that's generated, there's no save files from the scenario save files that's generated. That's a bit of a shame. Will we see that in the future? I hope so, because one of the great things that was when we launched Flight 4 is that previously in the ESP version at least, it would actually remember where you previously shut down the aircraft, the exact lat long of where you were. It remembered that, and when you loaded, it would then generate a scenario file which you loaded in with the time and date that you specified, with the location of the aircraft where it was, and off you went. That's not available here at this time. I hope that they bring it forward. But for now, it's a case of the time and date don't matter. You just simply select it, but you have to manually do it yourself. You can't launch the sim automatically. You can't launch the flight automatically, and you can't launch a load of safe flight plan. So those things are a little frustrating that they're missing, but at the same time, it's great to see a really high quality product here in the sim. If you're an existing owner of Air Hauler 2, there is a discount available for you. Make sure you check your email or log into your Just Flight account to be able to get that. But for new users, as I said, it's a one-time buy, and it gives you a reason to explore the world. One of the great things that always gets asked is, what do you do in flight simulation? Do you just do the same routes all the time? And a lot of people do, and if you like doing that, that is perfectly fine. But for me, I like exploring the world and going somewhere new. For example, I have never been to the airport that we went to today. I have never been to Wedderburn. In the sim or in real life. I've never been there. And today now I have. I can now tick that airport off and say I've now visited that airport, which I think is kind of cool. So that's one of the things I love about programs like Air Hauler, where it gives you a reason to go somewhere somewhere different, somewhere you've never been before, and to do an approach and maybe fly an aircraft that you've never done before. So I think overall, this is very much, it's built on a solid foundation. I hope to see some improvements. Probably, I'm most likely going to put these down to the developers sort of still grappling with the new sim. And I think there's still some things and some changes to the Sim Connect interface that they'll need to work with. But overall, it's still a great experience, a solid experience, and if anything, actually more accessible because it doesn't have those extra features. It actually makes it more accessible because it means that you can load in the way you want to load in. So I think that's still I think it's a really good value for this one. As I said, in terms, if you were looking for a company cargo simulation, a logistics company simulator, and that also allows you to fly, this is looking a pretty damn good option for you. Now, as I said, this is part one. Part two, we're going to look at the new mode that's been introduced with Airhauler 2 that is unique to Airhauler 2 for Microsoft Flight Simulator, which is Nomad mode, and something that I think is a bit more of a crowded space, that one. So look for part two coming very, very shortly to my channel very shortly. Otherwise, as I said, if you're looking for a logistics company simulator that allows you to do flight simming, you can't go. I personally think you can't go past Airhauler 2. I think you really can't. So there you go. That's definitely 2 thumbs up from me. Alright guys, that does round out this video. Thank you very much for tuning in. Don't forget as always to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying these videos and want to see more. And if of course you can catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by finding me on Facebook and on Twitter. Just search NovaWing24. Alright folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.